I thought changing my life meant making crazy changes overnight. Waking up at 5 a.m., working 12 hours a day, lifting super heavy weights. But that approach didn't really work in the long run. I was always burnt out, inconsistent, and found myself increasingly relying on motivation to get things done. But a couple of years ago, I came across this book called Atomic Habits, and there was this one principle in it that changed everything. It was this principle that tiny improvements seem meaningless in the moment, but over time they compound. Here's the math behind it. If you were to improve by just 1% for the next 365 days, you would have improved by 37 times by the end of the year. Not because of one huge leap, but because improvement compounds. Once I truly understood this principle, I started living my life very differently. The first change that happened in me was that I started valuing consistency far more than intensity. Instead of focusing on a single deep work session or a single workout and thinking, how much can I get done today? I asked myself a different question instead. I asked myself, how do I do this thing every day for years to come? Because as you saw in the graph, when you do something consistently for a year, progress is inevitable. You are going to get good at that thing. Let me give you a real life example. A couple of years ago, I started doing jiu-jitsu, and back then the type of person that I was, I just wanted to become world class and get my black belt as soon as possible. So I went to classes 7 days a week, sometimes even twice a day, and every role that I did with 100% intensity, and I wanted to win every round and tap everyone out. But guess what ended up happening? I eventually stopped going to jiu-jitsu because that schedule was simply impossible to keep. My body always felt sore, I was always tired. Every role felt like a life or death situation, so I couldn't really focus much on technique. In short, I made very little progress with this intensity-based approach and ended up quitting jiu-jitsu altogether. But guess what? Now, years later, I started grappling again, but this time with a very different mindset. My mindset now is not how can I get a black belt as quickly as possible. My mindset is now, how can I continue grappling and learning for the next 10 years? Because I know if I can just get myself to show up for the next 10 years, I'm going to become pretty damn good at it. And when you have this long-term consistency mindset, every role is now an opportunity to learn something, get better at your craft. You're also a lot more relaxed and things are a lot more enjoyable because now it no longer feels like a test, but rather rolling now feels like an opportunity. And instead of going 7 classes a week, I dropped it down to 4 or 5 classes because that's what I can do consistently given the time and energy that I have. And I have now applied this consistency first mindset to everything that I do. Instead of trying to bump out a YouTube video every single day, I produce maybe 1 or 2. Instead of trying to read for hours, I just read for 30 minutes. Instead of trying to set a personal record every workout, I focus on the quality of my sets and reps. And believe it or not, I have seen far more progress in all these domains of my life by actually doing less and making them less intense. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there is just no room for intensity and you need to avoid it all the time. I mean, there are still times that I do hard rounds of grappling, and there are times when I really push myself while creating content. Intensity at times is necessary for growth. However, these intense sessions are not done all the time. My philosophy is still consistency first, intensity second. Back when I was a short-term thinker, I used to fall in love a lot. Not the kind of romantic love you have with a person, but I used to fall in love with, outcomes. For example, if I was creating a YouTube video, I would constantly think about the views and the likes that I would get. If I was working out, I would constantly think about the number of reps that I would get or the weight that I would be lifting. If I was working on my business, I would constantly think about how much money I could make. And all this outcome-based thinking seems like perfectly normal and even promoted, right? But the problem is that when you make outcomes your priority, you fall out of love when things do not go your way. For example, this is my 3rd YouTube channel. I stopped making YouTube videos in the past because I did not get the views that I wanted, and that was so discouraging. Also, a couple of years ago, I gave myself an outcome-based target that I was going to make 10K in the next 1 year as an entrepreneur. And giving myself this outcome-based goal made me anxious and also made me make poor long-term decisions. And when I did not accomplish that outcome-based target, I kind of felt like a failure and almost considered quitting entrepreneurship. But now things are quite different. I am no longer in love with external outcomes because, to be honest, most times outcomes or accomplishments are not totally in your control, and making that your source of dopamine isn't the best strategy. Instead, I am now in love with the process of becoming better. Now when I create these YouTube videos, I'm far less concerned about the views or the comments. I am now much more concerned about how can I become a better creator in the process of creating this video. Can I make my editing better? Can I write a better script? Can I make a more convincing thumbnail? Now just thinking about all the potential things that I could possibly get better at, that makes me excited and fills me with energy. Like, regardless of how my video performed in terms of views, I have already won. The video has already made me a better creator. I have taken the same principle and applied it to entrepreneurship. My main goal isn't just money. I want to actually grow and develop skills as an entrepreneur. I want to help solve real problems for people. I want people to say, damn, this guy changed my life. Do you want to know what is the best thing about falling in love with the process of getting better? It's the fact that you feel happy and rewarded almost every single day by just making a little bit of progress at something. You no longer have to wait months or years for an external outcome to happen. You are now in control of your happiness and not something random. And if you really think about it, that is so empowering. As always, in case no one has told you this, I'm rooting for you.